We're on the road at the Narrow Way Café on Detroit's west side for this episode of One Detroit. Coming up, we'll head to Islandview for a candid conversation on violence in the city, plus headlines with Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson, including Governor Rick Snyder's exit interview, and a unique tour of Livonia. Hop in the car with the McCotter brothers. I'm Christy McDonald. It's all coming up on One Detroit.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Support also provided by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and the Bill and Shirley Fox Fund for Leadership and Public Affairs Programming at Detroit Public TV.
You see a lot of the street work going out here, a lot of the boulevard work that they're looking to expand the sidewalks, is what they were saying here, to try to make it a little bit more of a walkable community for people to be able to take advantage and see a lot of the shops and stuff that are going in.
Well, I mean, they did the boulevard work on Livonia, and that was the first thing that they thought was going to make it easier for people to, get across the street, and it's made some difference. There's a condo development right at 7 in Livonia right now, and they think that will, again, raise the level of activity.
Did you guys get your coffee already?
I did not try the coffee.
You don't drink
yet.
coffee?
No.
Nolan, but how do you keep going? Like, what's the secret then? The method to your madness if you don't drink coffee?
I don't want to go too hard.
So Sabrina, you guys have been open for over a year now on the Avenue of Fashion.
Yep, we opened August of 2017.
Yeah, and so what has the change been like here?
It has truly been an adventure. First of all, it feels like family here. It feels like home and making a place in the community.
I think, yeah, really connections with people who live nearby. And what are they telling you when they're coming in here?
We, for sure, pride ourselves in having a wonderful product. But one of the things that we reached out to doing is providing a stress-free environment. That kind of is our whole premise here. And so it's awesome that without even saying that, a lot of times customers come in and the first thing they say is, oh my goodness, I love this place. I love the atmosphere, I love the environment, I love the ambiance. I can sit here for hours and just feel so relaxed. And that's exactly what we want to provide for the community.
One thing you kind of alluded to that wasn't very stress-free is being a small business owner and taking the leap and opening up a business. What has that been like for you, and what are some of the challenges that I think that you would pass along to other people who are looking to do the same thing that you're doing?
Well, it is somewhat stressful opening up a brand new business. We started at Straight Gate Church, and it started off being a ministry. And so that's what we set out to do is, we're sharing love to our congregation, and everything went well. We want to do that same thing for the community.
Welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald. We have a full cup of coffee at the Narrow Way Café and a full show coming up for you. Coming up, Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson will join me for political headlines, including taking a look at Governor Rick Snyder's exit interview. Plus, we'll give you a tour of Livonia, and I promise you've never seen it through the eyes of these two brothers, Dennis and Thaddeus McCotter. Yes, the former congressman. We'll have that just ahead. But we're going to start by checking in at the Church of the Messiah in Islandview. It's on Detroit's east side, and we met with Pastor Barry over a year ago as part of our relationship with Community Development Advocates of Detroit and our efforts to go into different neighborhoods and see what people have to say about what's happening in their communities. Recently, they had their second annual State of the Hood meeting to specifically take a look at people's biggest concerns and how they can empower themselves for change. One Detroit producer Will Glover has our story.
Welcome to the second State of the Hood address.
It's a full house in the basement of Church of the Messiah in Islandview on the city's east side. Pastor Barry Randolph kicks off the second annual State of the Hood to address the most pressing issues in Detroit neighborhoods.
We're not going to sit there as our neighborhood go to hell, as our children go to jail, as our mothers are out there struggling, old people afraid to leave out of their house.
Residents and community leaders shared ideas and projects they're working on. The goal is to help people feel connected and empowered to fuel their own neighborhood's resurgence.
We bridge people, rebuild neighborhoods, and rebuild lives.
My name is Nicholas Buckingham. I am the campaign director with Michigan Liberation. It is an organization that focuses on criminal justice reform through the courtrooms with a focus on prosecutors, judges, and working our way back into the jails and prisons.
Students for Peace is a competition where two schools compete to see which school can create the most peace.
The conversations around blight, crime, and mass incarceration are happening in neighborhoods across the city. Detroit City Councilwoman Mary Sheffield wants people to know the city leaders are listening.
There's nothing wrong. I am totally for people coming and moving into Detroit. I think we need to increase the population, but we have to protect those that have been here and make sure that we're providing resources for those who have been here.
But government can only do so much, and residents gathered here know they have to make their own local connections to help people in their neighborhoods.
What's going on in Detroit is a wonderful thing as far as a building and putting billions of dollars back in, but it needs to be billions of dollars being put back into the neighborhoods. People that's been here for many years.
Our strongest mechanism is communication.
What we need is really who we are. We have all the resources, and it is for us to walk it like we talk it.
We losing so many of our youth. We're using so many of our brothers and sisters to mass incarceration, to death, and a lot of it is rooted in poverty.
You're not going to employ our people. Forget you. We will employ our own. Oh, we won't help you start your own businesses. Forget you. We will start our own. Oh, we're not interested in higher education for the people in the inner city. Forget you. We got 153 kids in college. The thing about it is the people in Detroit have suffered enough. The people on the bottom have suffered enough. And because of the fact that so many other people won't stand up for them, we're going to stand up.
We'll continue to check back in on Islandview, so make sure you go to our website to find all of our other stories from the neighborhood. All right, now it's time for some good debate with Nolan Finley from the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of WDET after the election dust is settled. Last week, Governor Rick Snyder had his exit interview at the Detroit Econ Club. I kind of thought it was a little too early for an exit interview because I'm thinking that he might have a little bit more work to do in the next couple of weeks here.
It could be really frantic work, right?
Yeah, as we head into lame duck here. But what did you kind of take out of that when he spoke at the DEC, Nolan?
Well, I mean, I didn't get the feeling that he's done. I mean, as you said, he's got some work to do. Wasn't a whole lot of reminiscing. He did talk about where the state has come under his leadership and the things he's proud of. But mostly he was talking about what the state still needs to do and what our political process needs to look like. He spoke a long time about civility and his concerns about our inability to get along, both as citizens, but also as politicians trying to make effective policy for the state. That was heavy on his mind. It seemed like he'd have owed the bulk of his talk to the need to improve our relations.
We've talked about the need for civility, but I think what that means to people can be very, very different in terms of how you speak out against maybe policy that you don't believe in, and you believe it's time to be a little uncivil about it.
That's funny because Hillary Clinton last week said, well, we can return to civility when we get a Democrat back in the White House. I was thinking that's probably not the idea.
So I guess how far have we come in that civility conversation?
The problem is historically, words like that have been used by those in power to keep those without power from challenging that power. And so it's kind of a give up to go along kind of tool, and you want to be wary of that. There is a distinction between giving up and being able to talk about differences passionately and excitedly and working toward solutions.
I was just going to say more than just talking about it, but being able to craft policy that is going to be effective for the state and looking at two things really and coming up in the future and what Michigan's going to have to decide on education and I think on infrastructure.
So if you go back to before the Flint water crisis, and this governor had just been reelected, kept his majorities in the Senate and the House, he was already expressing real frustration in his own party with the ability to get things done. He had accomplished some really important things in the first term, and he had a second term agenda. that legislature was not interested in an awful lot of that. And I think what he was talking about at the Econ Club was that period where there was an opportunity. They had one party rule in Lansing. They should have been able to get a whole lot of other things off their plate.
But in terms of this, what he did get done, pretty amazing, the agenda he did tick off in his first term. He got almost everything he wanted in that first term, except roads, and he never did
roads
get
and education
roads to the full extent he wanted.
Right.
And
education didn't come up until the second term, but that's a huge part of what we're doing here.
I'm not sure he asked the legislature for anything in terms of education.
Right.
I would put that on him. He failed to come up with that big, bold idea. And if I were faulting his 8 years, that's where I'd lay the fault. He never came up with the big, bold idea to change education. But if you think the business leaders report that was out this week, if you think about where the state has come since 2008, by every measure, we've surged ahead. I don't think anybody could have looked at where we were and where we are today and imagined it would have been possible.
So a couple other things happened in the world while that was going on. The country recovered, and a lot of the things that we saw happen here were about that recovery. The auto industry recovered because you had a federal administration intervene and save two of the companies from bankruptcy. I don't know that Governor Snyder can claim credit for that, although certainly he did things to help make that matter more. The other thing that's happened, though, over this time period is, again, this widening of the gap, the pay gap, the wealth gap in this country. That's particularly pronounced in Michigan when you're talking about urban areas. Detroit, we spent a lot of money making sure that Detroit would not go bankrupt. We haven't yet figured out a way to make sure that the people of Detroit have living wages, have opportunity for education, have safety and all these other kinds of things. I mean, he deserves credit for some things, but he also deserves blame for not dealing with things across that economic spectrum. If you're a poor person, especially if you live in the city of Flint, is this a better state today than it was 8 years ago? It is not.
It's in a lot of ways it is, even if you live in Flint. Employment
I don't hear anyone in Flint saying
employment in urban areas is up. Actually, there's a very positive attitude in Flint because the governor and others have tried to help bring development into the city, jobs.
Yeah, but I would say that they've lost their trust in government for the rest of time.
This administration.
They have that, but you look at what's happening in Flint. There's economic development happening, and there's jobs being created. Not to this extent. Flint was a city that was in deep trouble before.
Actually, that's really unfair.
The state did have to come in and help after that.
You look in urban Michigan, Detroit and other urban cities, employment's up, household income's rising, policies matter. The governor, we didn't just benefit from the nation's recovery. Remember, the nation was doing well while we were failing because before the recession, because our tax structure was broken, our business taxes were a mess. He fixed those business taxes. You got businesses and economic development coming here that wasn't coming here before and wouldn't have come here without those reforms.
At the same time, he also instituted a tax on retired people. I mean, these were not
pensions.
So these were not tax breaks. These were tax shifts. What he did was he took the taxes off business and put them on individuals, and for the most part,
in that extent, Steve, he made the tax system more fair. If you're a retiree with a pension under the old system, you weren't taxed. If you were a retiree with a 401k and no pension, you were taxed. If you were a retiree whose retirement plan was working in McDonald's, you were taxed to the full extent. It was an uneven, unfair system.
This. So now in these final last couple of weeks in lame duck, what things are you think that you're going to be seeing in lame duck session that's going to maybe codify some of those financial decisions that Governor Snyder was able to do?
And that's the key. I think you hit it right on the head. You got to codify the good government practices put in place. Balanced budget passed early, 2-year budgeting plan, long-term debt payoff. You should codify all that so it's there in place. We don't have to worry about it again. It just happens automatically.
Well, I'm not sure you codify that kind of thing. Those are the kinds of things that are discretion of the executive. The new governor has a right to take a look at all of those things, decide which ones she wants to do, which ones she might do differently. This idea of battening down the hatches before you get out the door so that nothing that you did can be changed is an odd sense of legacy. I do think the new governor should look at some of those things and say, hey, let's continue these, right? 2-year budgeting makes a lot of sense. There's no reason that she's going to back away from that, I don't think, just because she's of a different party. It's kind of thumb your nose at the idea of a Democrat coming in to say, we're going to make this into law rather than discretionary.
I know it's a little early, but what else would we see in lame duck, do you think?
Well, they've got to deal with that. The legislature took on this minimum wage and family leave proposal. Now they've got to do something with it. And they can't alter it too much from what the people who signed those petitions wanted. I think they should have let it go to the ballot box and made an argument against it. They chose not to do it. Now it's in their laps. They've got to come up with a plan.
Yeah. I mean, they've talked unconstitutionally about just rolling it all back or rolling it back significantly. They cannot do that. This was a cynical move from the beginning. This was meant to thwart an effort by the people to do something that probably would have passed at the ballot box. Now they got to live with the consequences.
Maybe not. I think it should have went there. If they were going to do it for any proposal, they should have done it with the marijuana proposal, because the legislation on that now is going to be impossible to write.
All right, well, we're going to see what happens after the Thanksgiving break. You guys want more coffee because the espresso machine's been working overtime.
I was going to say, it was loud back
It's been working overtime behind us. All right, one of the things that we like to do on One Detroit is give you tours of neighborhoods. And maybe you think you know about a certain neighborhood or a city, but we take you around with a little bit of a unique perspective. This time we're showing you Livonia, and we're getting former Congressman Thad McCotter and his brother Dennis. We're getting them to take the wheel and drive you around this northwest Wayne County city.
Yeah, that was a while. Yeah. So this is 7 Mile. Over here used to have Kmart. You can see that like all the other Kmarts. Here's got its problems. We used to go up there all the time.
Everybody went there when we were kids to buy those parkas.
Yeah.
Those blue parkas with the fur.
Some of them moon boots.
And the moon boots. And the fur would always get in your mouth.
And snowmobile boots too, remember the ones?
Yep, with a little buckle on them.
Yep.
Had the blue light special.
Now here's Livonia Mall. Livonia in many ways, when it started, was a malled city. You had Livonia Mall over here, and this was anchored by Sears, now it's a Walmart anchor. You had the old Wonderland Mall south of us. Now you got Laurel Park.
I remember moving out to Livonia and Farmington being a dirt road.
I don't remember Farmington being a dirt road.
I do. I have different memories than you. They're coming back to me the older I get.
You're in a different part of the car.
Yeah, and I was in the back. Back when you had the seats in the back of the station wagon that opened up, so you could face each other. Yeah. No seat belts.
Yeah, trial lawyer's dream.
Oh yeah, man.
Parents moved out here. A lot of the people moved into Livonia. Livonia became the second largest city in Wayne County. It went over 100,000 people. At one point, it's dipped under, but it may be heading back over 100,000 again. So we moved here in 1972. I was like 7, you were 6. Our parents were Detroit public school teachers. We were over by the old Renaissance High. And it was part of the emigration from the city at the time. So we'd come down 6 Mile, because there was no I-96. And so we would take this, and it took like forever.
It took forever.
It felt like it was taking forever.
It was just a straight shot, though.
Yeah, it's a straight shot.
I remember when we came out, Mom said, we're moving to the country.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Really? Okay. Now this is where we're going to show you where 2 icons of Livonia used to be and no longer are. See, now Livonia was incorporated because Detroit Race Course was here.
Oh, that's right.
Thoroughbred racing. They wanted to incorporate because they had a racetrack.
Oh my gosh, I forgot all about that. And that was a huge thing.
And then, they just kept, then it changed into Ladbroke. The Brits bought it, and now it's a shopping complex.
Yeah, it's a
Millennium Park. So we're heading down. You remember, it used to be called the Mai Kai Theater. It was one of those huge theaters that had a huge screen.
to
And then they changed it into the George Burns Theater.
George Burns
and they brought
Theater.
George Burns in to open it up. I don't know how they managed to do that.
I remember Florence Henderson did a show there.
Yeah, it was going to be like what the Fox is now. They're going to turn into a live entertainment venue. That's the George Burns Theater now. It's called Condominiums.
There's Daly's.
I don't think. Yeah, you can still drive up,
They
man.
still have the drive. I just don't know when he comes on waits on you.
Now this is your complex. The district courts are off 5 Mile. And here's Livonia City Hall up here on your left.
But we used to ride our bikes through here when they were building it and skateboard. I don't remember what the one that was there before it looked like.
It looked a lot like that.
Okay.
City Hall Annex. It looked a lot like that. They left that part on there. We didn't know it at the time, but basically we were moving into downtown, quote-unquote, Livonia, where a lot of the police, fire, the city municipal offices were.
Bates.
Yeah, Bates.
Bates has got to be the center of Livonia.
Because when we came, it was like the first rush, and we were at the tail end of it.
There was like 1,000 Little League teams.
Yeah, thousands of Little League teams. There's a few baby boomers, but a large part of it was really Gen X kids. Now this is the subdivision we grew up. We like to refer to it as Coventry Gardens or the subdivision behind Bates.
Yeah, that's how people know it.
Once the Generation X kids started growing up, it went from having too little school capacity to having too much. And so Lincoln Elementary School.
That was where our school, that was one of the first schools to go down. That was my safety post.
Yes,
right
yeah, safety
there.
post.
Yeah.
This is Lincoln Elementary School.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
That was Mr. Gosman's class, that house right there.
Yeah, he's in Arizona now.
Home plate was right around that tree, and we played baseball that way.
The school was all over here. You could hit it. And I remember the guy threatened to break our kneecaps. We hit the ball.
Yeah, we were little kids, and he said he looked like Burger
Well, it was a great
King.
life lesson.
He looked like Burger King, and he was Burger King.
We called him Burger King for the rest
from the next 40 years.
Yeah, until we still do.
Yeah.
Still call him Burger King. I hope he's not around.
They'd break our kneecaps.
Break our
I
kneecaps.
could probably use
call
a
him Burger
replacement
King.
right now anyway.
See, what they did in Livonia when in the early 70s and that is carried over now is schools, parks all over Livonia. It's a quintessential bedroom community with all the conveniences you want, and Detroit's 20 minutes away if you want to go downtown. You would hear stories about in especially the 2000s, I think even the New York Times was one, oh, Livonia's done, Livonia's done. Well, it's not going to happen because the bedrocks, even though things have changed, you have the St. Mary's Mercy Hospital there. You have Madonna University. You have Schoolcraft now, which has 4-year degrees. You have very stable housing property values now. And so people come in. You know, there's things have come and gone, but I think that one of the reasons that 48154, this zip code, which is hot again, like when we first moved here in the 70s, what's old is new, I think it's Bates bringing people.
It's the heart of Livonia.
Bates remains the heart of Livonia. What it will do to your heart is grounds for angioplasty.
It's worth it.
It's worth it, I think.
So what'd you think of that?
I thought it was very entertaining to watch Dad McCotter do it.
I was going to
more
say,
than anything
our
else.
One Detroit producer, Bill Kubota, put that together, and I think getting their perspective of the McCotter brothers sitting in the front.
That's where I live, and
row.
I've never quite seen it that way.
Yeah,
I
was
will
just gonna
differ
say,
on
you
the
pointed
whole.
out a lot of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've lived there for almost 30 years. Bates, right by my daughter's house. Both my daughters, they love Bates. And every time you're over there doing anything, oh, I'll get Bates. I hate those hamburgers.
Come on, Nolan.
I do.
It seems like
Are
you're
they
the
like
only
White
person
Castles?
in Livonia.
I mean, it looks like a
They're,
White Castle.
they're jazzed
building.
up White Castles. I never did like a greasy slider.
You know, it was interesting to hear him
No
talk,
offense to
though.
Bates.
No offense,
That's
none
okay.
taken, I'm sure. But
We'll be getting their sponsorship.
to hear, but to hear them talk about their history and when their family moved there, that both their parents were school
Fairly
teachers.
common
and
story, yeah.
A common story for Livonia and maybe a lot of the other subdivisions ringing around.
Yeah, I
Detroit.
mean, you think about the time period they're talking about. This is when, people had been leaving Detroit for about a decade at that point, but it had accelerated in a way that was really starting to empty out neighborhoods in the city, and Livonia was one of the places that a lot of people went. Mike Duggan, the mayor now in Detroit, has the same story to tell. Ed McNamara probably.
But no, I mean,
had the same story.
you lived there for what, 30 years?
Yeah, 25, 30 years. It's a great
Yeah.
town. And it was a town before Detroit started emptying out. There are old sections of Livonia. It was a farming town. I went to Schoolcraft College in Livonia, and it was all farms around the college then. Now it's all, huge developments, office buildings, restaurants. It's grown quite a bit, not dissimilar to like Troy or even Southfield. I mean, those ring suburbs built up rather quickly.
Well, our thanks to the McCotter brothers, because I don't think you're going to see that kind of tour from anyone else. All right, and that is going to do it for One Detroit. Make sure you join us back here next Thursday. Thanks so much to Sabrina and Jonathan at the Narrow Way Café for having us. It's great. I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Support also provided by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and the Bill and Shirley Fox Fund for Leadership and Public Affairs Programming at Detroit Public TV.